Hi, I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections, and today I'm going to discuss knob and tube wiring. So first off, what's knob and tube wiring? It was a two-wire conductor that would run all over homes with a hot and a neutral. That's it. No grounding conductor. So number one, it's not a grounded system. If you see a three-prong outlet in a location where you've got knob and tube wiring, it's probably not a grounded outlet. If you plug in a tester and it shows that it is grounded, there's a couple of possibilities that I'm not even going to get into with this video, but it's probably not right. So it's mostly a two-wire system, and it's called knob and tube because you would have ceramic knobs that the wires would connect to. It'd wrap around these knobs, and ceramic tubes that wires would pass through when the wire had to pass through floor joists, and the ceramic would actually protect the wires. So that's where it gets its name. So what's the big deal with knob and tube wiring? Number one in my book is going to be damaged wiring. When you have knob and tube wiring installed in an attic, it's subject to damage from people walking around in the attic. It can be damaged by animals like squirrels getting up inside the attic and chewing on it, and the insulation itself can be degraded over time from excessive heat. And you ever stick your head in an attic on a 90-degree day, it's not 90 degrees in that attic. It'll be ridiculously warm in there. And when that insulation on the knob and tube wiring is exposed to those really hot temps over a long period of time, it breaks down, and then we're left with bare exposed conductors in the attic. And we've seen this many times. And when you've got an exposed conductor, it means you've got a shock hazard, maybe an electrocution hazard, and certainly a fire hazard. The same thing can happen in light fixtures. Modern light fixtures are rated for 90 degrees Celsius. If you take an old light fixture that's connected to knob and tube wiring and you replace it with a newer fixture, the wires going into that new fixture need to be rated for 90 degrees Celsius. Knob and tube wiring is not. It's rated for 60 degrees. So you take that knob and tube wiring and you run it into the new fixture, and the insulation on that wire is probably going to get hot, it's going to get brittle, and it's going to fall off. I've seen it happen. This picture here comes from a light fixture where the homeowner told me their light flickered and they couldn't figure out what was going on. I took it apart, and this is what I found. I mean, it's hard to believe that this was still live, but I promise you it was. And you can see that conductor. It looks like it's actually touching the metal housing of the fixture. So the right way to install a new light fixture on old knob and tube wiring is to actually have a junction box in the attic or somewhere. You take the knob and tube wiring, you bring it into a junction box, and then you take a newer cable like NM cable, Romex, and then you run that out to the fixture. That's a proper way to do it. But most people don't know about these things. So that's where you run into problems. Another one will be splices. When you have open electrical splices for knob and tube wiring, if it's all the original stuff, there's no problem with that. That's okay. That's the way it was designed. You would have the wires wrapped around each other. I read somewhere they were supposed to be wrapped around each other 5 times, and then soldered, and then you wrap the electrical splice with friction tape. Very reliable method for doing it. The wires don't come loose. We're good. No problems there. But then when you get the next person who comes in and somebody's running Romex and they want to connect to the existing knob and tube wiring, are they going to do it the same way? Are they going to take that Romex and wrap it 5 times and solder it? No, we know that. They're going to take wire nuts and just connect it like you have anything else. And then you end up with open splices. Those are hazardous. Most electrical failures happen at connections. And that's why anytime you got connections, it's supposed to be done inside of an electrical box. When I say any, there's always a little asterisk, but for the most part, electrical splices need to happen inside of junction boxes. So splices are another concern. Knob and tube wiring also shouldn't be buried below insulation. Now, I personally question the hazard level of this. The idea is that knob and tube wiring was supposed to be a free air conductor. It's supposed to dissipate heat out into the open. It was never rated or listed or designed to be installed buried in insulation. So there's questions about whether it's able to dissipate heat properly, and then when you insulate it, maybe it won't. Now, if you have insulation in an attic my thinking is that attic is already going to be really hot. You cover it with insulation, and now you're putting it on the house side of that thermal boundary, and it's going to stay much closer to the house's temperature, right around 70 degrees, where it's going to be much happier. So I personally don't think insulation in an attic is that big of a deal from a temperature standpoint, but you do end up covering the wires, and it's much easier to damage them. And the rule says you're not supposed to do it. Now, I know there's exceptions, like in California. So as a home inspector, when I come into a home and I find any of these conditions, my recommendation is to have it fixed and have it further inspected by an electrician. Because usually when I find a couple of these things, there's probably a lot more going on that an electrician's going to uncover if they start opening up junction boxes, outlets, walls maybe. I've had clients send me pictures of open splices they found in walls with knob and tube wiring. I've found it myself. So I recommend further inspection when I find any of these defects on knob and tube. And I can't remember the last time I inspected a home with knob and tube wiring and everything looked great and safe. There's almost always issues going on. So that's number one, is the safety of the home itself. And then the other item is insurance, the insurability of the home. Now, we'll move on to talking about insurability, but before I do, one other thing I want to caution people. Sometimes you'll have a radio antenna running through an attic and it looks just like knob and tube wiring. It's a single conductor and it'll be connected to the same ceramic knobs that you have for knob and tube wiring, but it's not knob and tube. It's simply a radio antenna, and it would go to this outlet down in the living room or some similar area, and it would have a neutral, a ground, and a hot, and an antenna conductor. So you'd have these four different things, and one of the conductors is this funny angled thing. That's all that wire is. So that doesn't need to be reported as knob and tube wiring. It's not a concern. So what's the problem that insurance companies have with knob and tube wiring? Statistics. That's about it. Insurance companies are just all about numbers. If the statistics tell insurance companies that there's more fires at this house, then they're going to charge more for it, or they won't insure it. And that's what we've heard over the years, and we seem to be hearing more and more that people cannot get insurance if a home has knob and tube wiring. And so to make it so it's not just hearsay, to do some of the research for ourselves, we contacted a ton of insurance companies and we asked them a simple question: will you insure a home with knob and tube wiring? And I'll put the results on the screen here. Most of them said no, we will not insure a home with knob and tube. There were some companies who said yes, but they would charge a premium. We had one company who said they're going to conduct their own inspection. We had a long conversation with these guys. This was USAA, and one of the inspectors on my team did this interview, and he spent like 20 minutes on the phone with this woman trying to get the specifics of what this inspection would entail. And man, he was asking her a lot of questions, and he was getting a lot of vague answers. But it was very nice of her to spend all this time with us answering our questions. Bottom line is, if you're buying a home that has knob and tube, there's a good chance that you won't be able to get insurance. And don't take my list as gospel. This survey we did was conducted in July of 2019. You conduct this survey in August, you're probably going to have different results. This is a moving target as to who will and who won't. But the thing to take away here is that it might be a challenge to get insurance. So to summarize, knob and tube wiring is really old stuff. We find unsafe conditions with knob and tube as home inspectors during most of our home inspections, and it can be a challenge to get insurance. So if you're buying a home that has this, my recommendation is make sure that your home inspector is familiar with knob and tube wiring, and they know what to tell you when they find it, and they know how to identify unsafe conditions. That's it. Thanks for watching.